it's a great pleasure, and I'm very thankful to my host for letting me have a word here. Göttingen, otherwise too, for the physicist, had been a Makkah, the most sacred, a pilgrimage place, because the new physics was invented here in the first 25 years of the 20th century. And you have numerous names to go by. So it's really privileged to be in such a historic town, and particularly to this observatory, which now houses the social sciences. And so I think I would also like to peg on it that where the great science was done, now houses social sciences. It's time that we should have a dialogue between science and the society. So this is so what I'm going to share with you in another 40-45 minutes is a kind of a rumbling of a person who would like to have a dialogue between science and society. And that's what and what I feel is, what I want to discourse on is that the science is a method, but does it also give us some vision? And we'd like to try to work on that. So before we go there, and we scientists always like to talk in terms of laws. So let me enunciate my zeroth law of nature. And there I would mean is that, of course, we are all searching for truth, but the absolute truth or the whole truth or completeness can only be, can be proclaimed. The proclamation is not a sphere of science. That is somebody else's job, and that we don't do. So what we then could do is this, that it could only be proclaimed, but it could be achieved asymptotically. That we can never get the whole thing. We can tend towards it, and we can go as close as you could go close, but never there. So this is one realization should you have, or what it means is the profundity has an inherent ambiguity and uncertainty. And so some degree of incompleteness we must learn to live with. We shouldn't ask for a complete truth or absolute truth. So if it is within this premise that what we would like to work on. Now, this is a universal constraint. So all our probing of nature will be within this framework, that we have this inherent constraint which could not be overcome. So we will be talking, I will be talking within this constraint, that all scientific inquiries will have to obey this law. Now let us talk about what is science and how we do it. So science is essentially, it is a method of probing or knowing nature, knowing universe. So it's a method. It's a method which is objective, it's reliable, it is verifiable, it's verified by an experiment. It has other properties that you do everything with, you observe an experiment, and that is this experiment which validates this method. You have then it has its own internal consistency, so you build up your logical consistency, and above all, it is observer and space-time independence. Now, these are the characteristics of this scientific method, and it is these characteristics which makes this method the trustworthy, most reliable method. Not only that, I would like to go that this is the only method I have of probing nature. Many times I have a serious argument with my social science friends who would say, how do you claim that all the scientific method is the only method of knowing things? My humble submission is that any other method cannot be it cannot give me a meaningful knowledge. It cannot give me a knowledge which is shared by all. You might feel something, you may have this, which could serve as a good purpose, but that does not become a part of a shared knowledge on which the society can rely upon. So that's the science's method. Now, driving force for science is nothing to take on faith. Everything has to be done, and that the spirit of science is there is a degree of skepticism should always be, a good scientist should always have a certain degree of skepticism. So you keep on and verify the things. So that skepticism and verification. And when I say this, how it works, what you first start with, you observe some natural phenomena. And within this natural phenomena, then you try to seek some pattern, some order. Based on this pattern and order, you make a hypothesis, you make a law, you enunciate a theory, and then you apply this to all things. So this is another thing about the scientific method, that when I am talking about a law, it is not specific to a thing, but it's applicable universally. And then you do experiment and verify. So long as the experiments and observations verify the law or the theory which we have enunciated, the theory stays. If there is one example, the example of such a thing, it's a Newton's law of gravity. Now, of course, there is a very charming story everybody tells you, that Newton sitting in his orchard under an apple tree, and the apple fell on his head, and there came out the law of gravity. Nothing could be further than truth. Scientific theories don't come out like this. However, it's a charming story. And the social scientists always say the world is made of stories, not of much of facts. So stories also have a useful purpose to do, but actually what you say is that that now you make a general law that it's not only the apples fall with the same law of gravity, everything falls, it applies to everything. When I throw a ball, it comes down because of the same gravity. Satellites I throw in, that is governed by this. Earth moves around the sun, all this. And then you verify this thing. And so you have this verification of the universe square law of gravity, that the strength of the force diminishes with the square of the distance as you go away from this. So the greatest triumph of this was the planetary motion, explanation of the motion of the planets, which earlier, before the Newtons, you had the angels to push them. Now this automatically, so this is as a matter of fact, this was really the greatest triumph of the scientific method, that something you do with a pen and paper here and prescribe that this is how the planet should move, and that's how exactly all the planets move. The laboratory here was the heavens, not a room in which you put to do an experiment. So it was a great triumph of a scientific method that it has, and it's not only that, it was so very accurate. So one many times say that the greatest weakness of Newtonian theory was that it was so successful. So this was a great triumph of scientific method. Now the question is, in this, if you have one contradiction, given a theory, given a law, if you find one contradiction in observation, then we require a new theory. Of course, that contradiction has to be established beyond any doubt. Once it has been established, then with no much emotion whether the theory was given by Newton or Einstein or Gauss, we have to look for a new theory, because we are really searching for truth. We are not here to propagate one man's idea or a legacy. So we need a new theory. On the new theories, generally we do, in science we build on things. When we look for a new theory, we don't throw away the old theory, because old theory so far it was good, means there was some truth in it. It is that it did not have the complete truth, its horizon or this framework gets expanded, so you extrapolate and formulate a new theory. So you extrapolate, formulate a new theory, and then again you do experiment and verify with the experiment, and this is how the process goes on. So we have, now one might ask, how did this science, this whole method was born? And of course the driving force of this is the human sense of wonder. It's to wonder about things, urge to know about the universe we live in or things around us. That is the driving force. Now you had one might ask the question that ancient times, did we not have a technology? Did we not have a science? The answer to that is that yes, we had a technology, but that was a technology which was not based on science, but it was more done on a trial and error method. And by trial and error method, also you can attain a great feat. And one of the salient example of that is the iron pillar in New Delhi, It's of, I think, the 4th or 5th century AD. It's rustless. So it's a great feat in metallurgy. But it is not born out of a science, but it's more born out of a trial and error. If it was born out of a science, then we should have now a very advanced science of metallurgy. It should not have been remained stuck to one particular event. So, true that you could have ancient technology which were not science-based, and hence it remained very limited to a particular given instance or particular given phenomenon. So, no science backup. Now, this is where the modern science comes in. So, you have in modern science where at a very new paradigm, the paradigm of reason, where you sought a cause-effect relationship. You ask the question why and how things happen. You try to understand. So, there was a shift that you try to understand, you try to explain, things. So, it's your understanding and explanation you have. Now, representative of the birth of modern science, if one has to say, yes, one can identify that with the Newton. Now, true that before Newton's law of gravity, eclipses were very accurately predicted all around the world by the calendar makers. But did this mean that they knew the law of gravity? If they were to make a law if they had known to know gravity, when we have the law of gravity, we know that the same law of gravity holds the stars together, galaxies, the whole universe. I can make a satellite, I can throw a satellite up there. Could calendar makers could have ever thought about this sort of thing happening? So, this is what tells you that when you know and understand thing, you liberate the thing, and science had this liberating, the modern science based on the cause and effect understanding liberated, and that's how the whole thing became so unreached. Now, let us come to the question of interaction with society. So, we have a birth of a modern science, and so it expanded our horizons of knowledge. Most importantly, it's empowered technology. The science-based technology did not remain confined to a one iron rustless pillar. It gave rise to a new metallurgy. It gave rise to a new thing. So, your technology became empowered. Now, that the new technology gave rise to the new industry, then what you call the industrial revolution. You had a mass production of the things, which machine, so you won over the labor, the machines don't fatigue, you could produce things in large numbers which cannot be used locally because your own things, and that's where you need a new market, and you had the phenomenon of colonization. So, it gave rise to a capitalistic mode of economy. So, it had So now the scientific discovery through the empowered technology had a far-reaching social impact. And of course, we all know that you had a moment this happened, science cannot remain, could not be left free to the crazy scientists to do what they like in their thing, because it makes its discoveries have such a wide range of impact, so the control of state and corporation became inevitable, and that's how that things today you have. You have through the colonization, you have divided the world into the two halves, the industrialized world and the other half where the colonies, and that's how, and so which had a great social impact. Why doesn't it go anywhere now? So, yeah. Now the ultimate pinnacle of this development, you had two wars, and in the Second World War, the atom bomb. The atomic bomb was the ultimate pinnacle of the modern science reaching its heights. And so that had a great social impact. You had a new world order, the ones which had an atomic weapons, ones who did not have, or ones who were friends with the atomic bomb people, and ones who didn't have it. So we had a new social order. So that gave you a new world order. Now, so now the question comes about is, the question to, in this state where we have, in the modern era, the scientists have a new responsibility. And the new responsibility in the sense, the science they do, the discoveries they make in their lab can have very far-reaching social impact. And that whenever you say the impact, they could be both good or bad. And so it's a question for that a new responsibility comes to the scientists, that they ought to address this question about the impact of their discoveries, the impact of the science they do. So for instance, today's situation, one of the most frontier sciences in genetics, the genome map. That is to say, you could have a genetic map of everybody, right? Which again has both good or bad effect. On the one side, you could have a good effect that you could certainly have a much healthier society where the genetic defects could be taken care of. On the other hand, you could have your insurance companies individually customize their premium depending on your genetic map. And now you say, already divided society gets further divided. And that could just imagine what's the situation. Most of the time, many times you would say, people would say, or we all scientists would like to say, but no, we will not give it to the insurance company. I have only to submit to them. Have we ever been able to keep anything from the rich and the strong. So let's not fool ourselves that I do this, but I won't give it to this, because that no longer, we just can't, it's not work. So that question is, the most important question is that the science must examine itself on greater and wider social concern. And this is a new responsibility for today's scientists. Now this is a big challenge. And we all know, you see, it's a very strange, because we want to do good science. Today's good science is a big science which requires large money. Large money can only come from the state and corporations, and whosoever gives you money doesn't give you free. So that's something. So here is the really a great dilemma for thing. But at the same time, you must say, first question I would say that we scientists should be conscious of this fact, and we have to address this challenge. It's a challenge. However, we would still say that the basic drive of science is truth seeking. We are all truth seekers. It's not so much that we would be doing for what the corporations or the state would like us to, but that is the basic spirit which we ought to keep this. Science shapes our worldview. So at some level we would like to believe that it's not only gives you something as a technology which improves our life, but it also shapes our worldview. For instance, isn't it that we are sitting on a third rock from an ordinary star, and in our position in the whole universe, if somebody wants to ask, just try to imagine this thing, that how many such stars we have. It's 10 to 11 billion stars we have in each galaxy. And how many such galaxies we have in the universe? Similar number, as many galaxies we have in the universe. So now we are sitting on an insignificant planet of an equally insignificant star. It should propagate in us a feeling of nothingness or humbleness, humility, that we are so humble, our position we have such an insignificant position in the whole scheme of things. So this is a one thought one has with this thing. On the other hand, we also know from Einstein that we live in a four-dimensional space-time. Which is to say, in more general terms, we say that though we see only three space, but we all live also in time, and space and time are both on equal footing, and they are bound together. So we should project ourselves that it is a four-dimensional space-time we live in. More clearly, it could be that the universe as we see it was presumably born about 15 billion years ago in a big bang, big explosion. And the moment you say this, you might say, what was before that and how it all came? These are the very nice open questions. This we still don't know what was before it and how it all came about. But we certainly know one thing very clear, that it all started in a very, very dense, explosive way some 15 billion years back. Now, all these profound truths, all these things gives you a sort of shapes our worldview. So the science does this overall picture of shaping of our worldview. Now, 20th century was undoubtedly a century of physical sciences, where great discoveries were made, great leaps were taken. The present century probably will belong to the biological sciences. That is where today the big advances are looking for. One thing is that the physical sciences, we had a big leap. Advancement has reached a level. Now, any further advancement is always takes much longer time because it's you have. So here, the biological sciences is now becoming in our own this thing more quantitative, more accurate, and that's where now it's going to be this thing. And of course, next question I would like to say is the 21st century will also be the new things will, very significant things should happen in the social sciences. There again, the social sciences, it is to me is that more the application of scientific method, making it more quantitative, and that is what will empower social sciences, and we will have a much greater and profound understanding on this. So profound truths and greater and deeper understanding in these disciplines in 21st centuries. Not that we will stop working on the physical sciences, but that thing is this is where I believe is a greater potential. You will hear much more profound things happening there. So now the vision, does science promote any kind of a social values, or does it shape our way? Honestly, it's not very clear that whether science by itself promotes any values. Mostly, many times it looks like a value neutral. But on the other hand, we can derive some analogy or probably some inspiration, and that is to say natural phenomena, we are all creatures of nature. So all natural phenomena should influence each other. First thing which we could say is our insignificant position in the whole universe should give us a sobering and very humbling feeling that we are so insignificant, and this is what should really promote a more cooperation and brotherhood. But on the other hand, we also have that we have attained a capability of creating alternative nature. We can throw in satellites, we can genetically engineer things, and this can really promote your ego of creator proportion. Now, here we have these two opposing trends, and the question is, which one of them gets better of us? This is where the whole the wisdom and sagacity, or that accumulated wisdom over the of humanity is at as on test here, that which one of these two opposing trends we pay heed to, or who becomes a dominant. One thing, of course, you could say scientific laws are universal, that you have. From there, if I want to deduce some social value, then of course I should say that this should be a more equality promoting, brotherhood, cooperation, democratic promoting. So this is a sort of a loose connection we could have with the values here. Still it goes further. Now, the next question, the more important question which I would like to ask is this, that we have now reached a threshold in our development, and we all talk about that now our society is a knowledge-based society. And the knowledge, what characterizes knowledge? The knowledge is characterized by that we understand things. And so the question we should make the new demand, no social value, that we should ask for a justification for everything. To justify things, we should measure and evaluate all things. All that is to say, we should measure things, and it's no good simply making a thing. And when I say measure all things, including the social interactions, I would agree here that the social interactions, or in the social sphere, I cannot have as accurate and as good measures as in natural sciences, but our tools are day by day becoming sharper and sharper, and we could really should be able to develop tools which measure the things very. So the new message which I would like to give is the measuring everything or justifying everything we should take as a new social value, and that is what is the demand of our rational being. And many times people would say this will make our life living more truthful and honest, and we will have a much more honest and truthful social interactions. Many times I am asked this question, that if I start measuring my social interaction like this, then I will lose my fun of living. My question is otherwise. What I would say, no, you will have a much more enriched and much more pleasure-giving living when you know that it's much more truthful, it's more honest. Now let me go a step further and then I come back to these slides. So the challenge we have here is that you had a modern science, or the modern era which you have, which was a big science, big organizations, which brought the concentration of people, centralization, displacement, and which was the hallmark of your industrial revolution. And the Western world has gone through this. So for this one has to pay a price, because the people were displaced, and moment you displace people from their natural environments, which is socially most undesirable. Now we have a new technology. And new technology, you doesn't need to bring people all here, I can have a dispersed mode of production, and I could have no displacement. And that's the most key to this, that you don't have to bring, you don't have to have a big systems, big centralized system. More the centralized system, more corrupt they become, because they become totally get distanced. You could have smaller systems, and so that is what the new technology now permits me. What is this is so we all know now the distance vanishing in both space and time. You could be any part of the globe, you could still be connected. Well, many of us all work now all 24 hours because I do something and send it to a fellow who is in US, who works and gets back. By the time I wake up again, the same thing is there. So you could go. With this, you could really have a society which is more harmonious, more peaceful. There is a possibility. New technology provides us an avenue, a possibility for this. And here the next question which comes, and which is a very important thing which I would like to say, how much technology should we adopt in our living? Now, the most of the disastrous effect technology you see socially is on this fact, because the technology gives you leisure. The work which you have to do, now the machine does for you. Now the question is, how do you utilize that leisure? And it is one of the most difficult things to utilize your leisure, free time, meaningfully and creatively. And it is this, that since I have a free time given to this, I have a generation of people who sit before the idiot box, which with regular intervals throws out violence on them. And that is what gives you. So that here is it's a very important question to ask for the developed world. How much technology should I adopt in my living? And the answer to that is, I should adopt only as much the leisure it provides me. I should be able to utilize that creatively and meaningfully. Only then I can build up a peaceful and harmonious society. So we have to put a brake on ourselves, not that the technology is available to me, hence I use it, but I should use it. So that is other thing, that moment you take up a new technological project, we also must invest equally or rather much more strongly in developing the ability of peoples to use that leisure creatively and meaningfully. And so that is really the new challenge which you have, and which you have this. Now let's go back to here we are. Now here you see that the developing country like India, there all three phases coexist. We still have the pre-modern era, which has some social good things, empathy intact. We also have the modern era, and we are also now in the present postmodern eras where the new technology is available. Now that real sagacity or the wisdom of leadership is here, that we should blindly follow the West, climb this hill of modernity, give all the good things which you have here, and then come down here? Or could we tunnel through? We don't have to climb this modernity, we can tunnel through this hill, carrying some good social characteristics with us, and come straight to the modern era of new technology and the postmodern. It is possible, and I think this is a great challenge for the leadership of the developing world. Let me conclude now to the last thing. So science must be conscious of its social responsibility and must respond with concern and understanding. At the same time, science provides an honest and effective tool for peace and happiness if used wisely. Wisdom and concern for humanity. This is that thing which a challenge for all of us, as well as a great opportunity. So science in its true spirit promotes measure of things and an honest and objective inquiry into everything. It is up to the people's ability to emulate in their living and social interaction. This would be the challenge as well as an opportunity in the new millennium. Thank you.